a general hot topic. So with AoE, we're still looking at it, and we're not going to have a huge solution anytime soon. I think last Devstream we said, all right, here's what we're going to do, and here's what we might do if what we do isn't enough. And what we did, of course, is ammo, and then we also buffed the whole headshots, all that stuff. And when you mentioned that, yeah, and then we'll like maybe self-CC will come back. That was like the one thing players don't.
Yeah.
But then there was self-damage, and there's still a path we are experimenting with internally on bringing self-damage back. Internally, we're looking at it, and I think that's probably the most we're looking in for AoE right now.
Yeah, so basically it's too early to tell really the effects of this.
Yeah.
Just, again, stats are super volatile. Like if I check stats this week versus last week, they're actually quite different. So it's going to take a little bit for it to settle down and for us to actually be able to rely on that sort of stuff.
We're not committing to anything on this stream. Yeah. We're telling you what we're looking at so that when we have a bigger conversation about it, you kind of have context. Because ultimately, we don't want to come out and make a change without you at least seeing what we were discussing and why. And the answer just comes down to the three core things you've mentioned about, is it disrupting other people's play, is it automated, or is it dominant? And there's ways to tweak levers there and look at those, but we don't have a solution yet, but we're still looking at it.
Yeah, one of the main things that came from feedback from the last stream is when we were talking about other things that we were looking at, including the making primed sure-footed not apply to self-damage. That one was immediately, everyone hated it with the thought that basically a lot of people really dislike the self-CC when you do the AoE.
Here's the thing, there's like obvious reactions, right?
Like they prefer the self-damage compared to the self-CC. So that got us thinking, because the problem right now is like, you can ignore the self-CC once you reach day 400. So if the self-CC is really that bad, then probably should change it in general versus just say leave it for players below day 400 and then keep it for a while. Now we know self-damage as it existed had a lot of problems, so we're trying a new version. And again, this is just something we're trusting in dev. Might never make it to the live build. It might make it to the live build. We don't know. But basically what we're trying is we're removing the self-CC. We're changing the self-damage to be % based. So basically, you cannot one-shot yourself. If you shoot at yourself at your feet, you take 75% of your health.
Because that's what most players had a problem with, right? I keep one-shotting myself.
25% or something like that.
So that kind of fixes that.
You know, and this also accounts for multi-shot. If you shoot a friendly that's close to you, the damage is reduced. So if someone walks in front of you, we got a lot of
the thing with walking in front of you and you dying was hilarious,
it's not the same as just what it was. It's not like you'll go into an Archon mission with a launcher and with the rules in Archon missions that it's like death is guaranteed. You're not going to kill yourself in an Archon hunt. You're just going to wound yourself. And so
the main objective is that it should feel scary if you blow a missile in front of your own face. That's it. Like you should really feel like there's like you did bad. You should.
No friendly fire.
You should be punished for that, obviously, because you exploded a rocket in front of you.
% based, where the % is not 100.
And the case on the range of the explosion and the range itself of the explosion is smaller for self-damage than it is for damage. Yeah. So there's like a whole bunch of things that we're trying right now. Again, we're not committing to doing that. It's just something we're experimenting with right now.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of Archon Hunts, there is a world of Warframe that the longer you play, the more powerful you get. We all know this. And a lot of our content you can kind of one-shot. And the Archons are currently content that the fight lasts longer than a certain period of time. And there's a lot of strong opinions on this. And generally speaking, I think the last time we talked about this would have been in a forum post. And our view on this is we need to figure out a way that will make the content that you guys want to play and we want to make last and feel fun. And absence of new mechanics and all of these things, it's hard to do because our damage is crazy and all of our weapons and combos go in really interesting ways where you can see your billion overflow crits, and bosses really can't survive that. So we do have damage attenuation, and generally speaking, we are looking at making it better. We don't exactly know how yet for the Archons for a future update.
Yeah, basically the main the main path we took with these fights were to try and grab the fights that we had from the New War, kind of scale them up to multiplayer and basically make them buffer. So if you play the New War and you fought that third Archon, you know that it got absolutely wrecked once you got there with your Warframe. So that was the main intent that we had here. We didn't really set out to make 3 fights with entirely new mechanics because we simply did not really have the time for such an endeavor. And we also, by experience, we know that some fights that we've done that are mechanic exclusive, you know, such as the orb, things like that, those also get a lot of people get annoyed because then your DPS kind of doesn't matter. So yeah,
It's hard.
it's hard. We are very aware that we have that bosses are not a solved thing in Warframe. That we still kind of are feeling our way around. Obviously, I don't think they're like you wouldn't say that they're like the strongest part of Warframe, right? Like
I think a lot of us have been working on and playing Warframe for so long. Maybe some of you are new to the game today. That a lot of these conversations may or may not be something you're even at yet at a content point. And generally speaking, I think we have a very rich world of very interesting things. But there's memes like the Sergeant, and
Right.
because that's holding the spot of boss. But we all know that then there's other bosses that are just like the Jackal rework players loved when we did the Jackal rework, and we have to look at all these reasons what people love about them and fit them into our content plans and revisions as we go. And I would say with damage attenuation, we know what it is that certain players don't like about it, but we also know that at the end of the day, there is an Archon fight to be had for a lot of our players, and if we take it off, then and we want to balance it to those super high-end players, no one below them will be able to kill the boss if you put billions and billions of health. And ultimately, with these fights, what we're going to do is we're going to continue to look at the damage attenuation. We're going to see if there's a version of it. I don't want to commit to anything that we're trying behind the scenes because it might not seem as though it'll be a success, and that's why we just need to keep trying. And I'd rather show you what we think we have that'll work to improve it, and then we can probably do that in a future Devstream. But
yeah. What we can't really do at this moment is like, because I've seen this mentioned several times, make the fights be 3 fights like the Rope list or like the Jackal. You know, like those take a long time to make, and the reality is that just we cannot, we just can't do it. That's the truth.
Yeah, so far in this Devstream, we're gonna look, we might add a different version of self-damage back, and we're gonna look at damage attenuation, but we know that bosses are a fun part for you to work towards as a goal, and we're still figuring stuff out with them, so. Good news? Everyone's like, what the hell is going on? It's fine. We are very invested in all of these things. And
Can you repeat all that? Oh my God. If I may take a step back.
All right, so essentially that's kind of the end of the discussion for AoE changes, and that's the end of the discussion for bringing self-damage back into Warframe. So what we're going to be doing next is essentially kind of discussing this subject a little bit. Now, I was one of the firm believers that self-damage should have never really been removed from Warframe, at least not entirely, not to the extent that it was completely ripped out of the game, simply because exploding something in front of your face should feel bad for you. You should be punished for it from a gameplay perspective, from how natural the game should feel, and honestly, it always felt off. Now granted, a lot of these AoE weapons that came to power only came to power after the self-damage system was removed or hindered or gimped in Warframe. That's what allowed essentially these explosive weapons to become so goddamn powerful, because essentially there was no real risk in using them. Yeah, you weren't being punished if you screwed up. It was fine to simply shoot a million rockets at your feet and create big explosions. And again, I'm a big fan of this system coming back. But as you saw, if they're gonna bring it back, because this is not a guarantee, this is something they are currently working on, it's gonna come back slightly different. As you heard earlier, it's gonna be like a percentage based damage to your own health if you're gonna get hit by that. Now, one of my questions is, if that system is coming back, if self-damage is coming back, then can we get the power of AoE weapons back to the level they were a couple of weeks ago? Because if you have that risk-reward kind of gameplay, then I don't believe you need the nerfs anymore. But of course, that's just my 2 cents on the matter. I got 3 fantastic individuals joining me today, 3 veterans of Warframe, and we're gonna hear what they have to say as well. Because you know how it is, 4 heads should be theoretically better than 1. And basically, we're just gonna discuss the subject alongside the damage attenuation and boss fight discussion. Now, the whole damage attenuation thing, to me, it sounded like this. Hey, listen, we know it's not the best solution in the world, and honestly, I'm hugely against damage attenuation because it basically it elongates the fight. Yes, because that's what Rebecca said. We want to give you these boss fights for longer. We don't want you to one-shot them and all whatnot, but the way they elongate the experience is through artificial means, and it honestly feels bad in execution. On the other hand, they also outline the fact that they simply don't have the budget or the time or whatever else restraints to actually make real boss fights. So what damage attenuation is, or how they made it sound out to be, is a necessary band-aid at the current time. But again, let's see what the others think as well. First of all, ladies first, as per the usual. Victoria from Poland, please, Vicky, take it away. What do you think?
I think that it's going to be fun with the fact that the self-damage is coming back. I mean, the entire self-stagger, as it was already said in the video, was basically basically ignored by some superficial means like going Rhina or Neja or using Prime Surefooted, which is an awful mod, and
Revenant and so on and so forth.
yeah, and
Yeah.
nobody really liked it.
Mhm.
And with the entire self damage, you're going to also be able to use it for your own profit, which is going to be also interesting part of the gameplay. Like Chroma is going to be able to
Yes,
use buffs
yes.
again.
The old combinations on self damage, Chroma, Mirage, etc. Those might be coming back as well.
Yeah, and that's what makes me excited. And of course, the fun value of accidentally killing yourself.
You know what, at times though, that was extremely hilarious. Granted, there were times where it really pissed you off, but again, at the end of the day, if a giant rocket explodes near you, it should do something to you, especially considering that in your Warframe, if you go near water, essentially you get a full reset. So as we all know, water is a lot more powerful than Warframes. Now, what do you think about the damage attenuation system implemented in the Archon Hunts? How do you feel about that one?
I mean, it's true. It's basically just trying to elongating the fight for the sake of elongating the fight. And there is the fact that some people just decided to say screw this and to use some means to one-shot the boss because it doesn't work at the first few hits. And yeah, I can see the fact that they cannot have resources, and I understand that. And I hope they just use those resources in the future with the future updates.
Definitely.
As
Thank
they
you.
promise.
As they promised. Well, throughout Warframe history, we have had a lot of promises. And when it came to delivering on those promises, let's just say that things didn't really always go according to plan. And that's just me trying to be civil about it. Next, also from Poland, Sauber667, a fantastic veteran. This guy actually started playing at around the same time I started playing. He's also got about 7,000 hours in the game. So, but what do you think about these topics and all whatnot?
Okay, I think that self-damage change is good change. However, I think that percentage part is not necessarily the best route because, for example, if you want to build around it, like your Warframe, you normally would, I'm gonna make my Warframe beefier, but then your Warframe gonna actually take more damage because it's percentage based. So that's removed that part of working around it. However, overall, I like that change. About damage attenuation, I don't like it because I feel like if you put the work, you make your weapons as good as possible. You learn the fight.
You should be rewarded. You should
for
be
that.
rewarded, definitely. Yes, that's
And
also
that
a good
removes
argument.
part of that.
All right, thank you so much, Sober. One thing that I would like to clarify regarding your statement, these are not changes that are already going to be implemented. This is something that Digital Extremes is playing around with. This is not something that is going to come to Warframe necessarily at this point. This is something, again, they are internally testing. So do bear that one in mind. And finally, my neighbor from the Netherlands, Joost.
When looking at explosive weapons, I always think, what put me off using explosive weapons when they still self-damage? And that's dying because a friend walked in front
Oh, that
of
was
you,
beautiful.
frost
That was
spawned
so
a bubble,
beautiful.
or the Atlas Rumblers decided to shield the target away from you. And if self-damage is coming back, I would like it if the explosive no longer explode on friendly targets.
So essentially, dying because of rumblers or dying because Frost put up a bubble and so on and so forth is essentially adding insult to injury, and you would like that not to happen anymore. Gotcha.
When it comes to the damage attenuation, I would say good idea, horrible execution.
Not holding any punches, they're horrible execution.
Essentially comes down with the way modding works. Our damage scales exponentially with each mod. And with damage attenuation, they're trying to put a logarithm around it so it becomes a little bit more linear. Which in theory sounds fine, but in practice they are too many things going wrong with it, and that's why I'm saying nice idea, horrible execution.
All right. Well, my friends, that's pretty much it. Again, I am a big fan of returning the self-damage system to Warframe because honestly, it just feels off not damaging yourself. The problem with the self-damage system, as my friends also pointed out, is the fact that it kind of was a little bit too much in the sense that it was very easy to one-shot yourself unless you had some invulnerability frame or anything of the sort. If they managed to make it so you don't just easily one-shot yourself, that should be definitely a fantastic idea for Warframe. And again, I would like to see the power of AoE weapons being brought up. If you have that risk factor, yes, then bring back the power of AoE weapons as well. As for damage attenuation, again, it's a band-aid. It is what it is. It's a band-aid, and if this is all they can do, then I guess we're gonna have to accept it. But it doesn't mean it's a great system. It's honestly a terrible system, and something should be done around it. Like Sober said earlier, if I have the power, I should be rewarded. If I'm a veteran, if I put in the time to make my setup great enough, why can't I deal with that fight a whole lot faster? This is not the way to enjoy a boss fight. What it is right now is a chore, not an actual enjoyable fight. And that's just my 2 cents on the matter. And I do believe, my friends, that is pretty much it. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, my name is Lazer. I want to know what you think about these hot topics in the comment section down below, and we'll definitely catch you guys in the next one. Say bye-bye, guys. Say bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.